So we're going to try to wrap up Hilchos Tefillin, and if anyone has any questions anywhere in Hilchos Tefillin, they should feel free to bring it up. So first we'll take on the right hand, left hand issue. Okay, so we know a righty puts his tefillin on. Do we have any lefties here?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see a tefillin. You don't have to unwrap it. We'll check it in a second.
I get to say dropping on the right hand.
You put on a lefty tefillin? You also do. Okay, so
Careful with the coffee.
Yeah. Let's check this in a moment. Just okay, so we all familiar with the halacha that a iter yad, a lefty, puts his tefillin on his right hand, because that's his left hand. The smoilite, or Lashon, is in his left hand, shemoneh shel kol adam, which is the right hand of all people. Now, if he's sholet b'shtei yadav, if he's
ambidextrous.
Yeah, ambidextrous. So then, then he goes back to putting on the left of everybody's left hand. Okay.
So I'm sorry, if he's ambidextrous.
Then he goes back to the normal and he puts it on the small of the world, everybody's left side.
Which is left-sided.
Yeah. Now it says like this: if he writes with his right hand, which is common, that we'll see. There's two common phenomena of how this works. But you can have a person that writes with his right hand and everything else he does with his left hand. He writes with his left hand and everything else he does with his right hand. So what do you do then? So Yeshaimim, so we have a machlekes. Yeshaimim sheniach tefillin b'yad shetosh koyach. You put it on his weaker hand, to be in yad keha. Okay, so there's two drushes in the psukim. How do we know you put your tefillin on your left hand? One, it says yadcha, which we dash in the word yadcha is written yud dalad chaf hey instead of chaf saflit. So yadcha means yad keha, your weak hand. So that's how you know you put it on the left hand. That's your weak hand. Okay, and that's one drasha. Then there's another drasha which says ukshavtam lois al yadech, and then it says uksavtam. So you tie it on your hands with kriyishma and you write it. So the hand that you tie it on with is the hand you write with. So normally a person writes with his right hand and he ties it. If he's putting it on his left hand, he's tying it on with his right hand. You can't do both with your left hand. So you're tying it on with your right hand. So the hand that you write with is the hand that you tie it on with. So that also shows us that you put it on the left hand. So the question is, if he writes with one hand and his stronger hand is the other hand, which drasha do we go by? Do we say yad chad, a weaker hand, which if he's stronger on his left side, then perhaps he should put it on his right hand? Or, well, he writes with his right hand, so ukshaytam uksavtam, so perhaps he should put it on his left hand. So that's a machlokes.
It was common that parents would force children to write with the right hand, even though they were left.
It was common, and as we know, all customs start off with Torah, and we know that for a kohen, being a lefty is some kind of mum, right? That he can't do everything that says be yamin, kohen by yamin. So nobody likes the left side, so they try to force people to become righties. I'm not going to go into the psychological analysis of this, but there was such a thing where they would tie his left hand, and he was forced to work with his right hand. And as a big shayla halacha, how far that actually works. That actually changes the status. Sometimes it can confuse the shayla more than it helps. Because now maybe he's using the right hand, but he's not really using the right hand, and he's more comfortable using his left hand, but he's using his right hand. Again, it's all kinds of shaylas. If he's a forced righty, is he a righty or is he a lefty? But just get to etzum halacha here. So you have a guy that uses one hand he writes with, and one hand he is a stronger hand. So yeshaimim. Some say sheyaniach tefillin b'yad shetosh koyach. Some people say you put it on the weaker hand. That's the drasha. Yad you put it on the weaker hand. B'ni yad keya. But yeshaimim that no. Shayad shekoiseh bahi chashuva le'imin le'inin zeh. The hand you write with is considered your right hand le'inin tefillin. Umaniach tefillin biyad connect, and therefore you put it on the opposite hand. So we have machlokes. And Ramah says that's how we are noyig. So Ramah says we are noyig to use the hand that you actually write with, consider your right hand, and the other hand to consider your left hand. And the Mishabura says ayin b'bir halacha. Okay, you know when it says ayin b'bir halacha, that it's not so simple. So he says, first of all, he wants to know what kind of writing are we talking about? Writing your name? Or writing a safras, you know, write your name. Maybe a guy writes with one hand, but safras maybe takes much more art. Safras is to write a tefillin, a sefer Torah mezuzah, to be a cipher.
Oh, to be a cipher.
To be able to write the letters. That takes a certain artistic ability. Perhaps you have to write that. Okay. Then he says like this. Ein Mogen Avraham, that according to this shita, even if he's shoyl b'shtei yadav b'ksiva, let's say he can write with both hands. Let's say you have a fellow he can write with both hands, okay, but a stronger hand is his left hand. Okay, we're going into Ramah Shita, that paskins that you go after ksiva. The guy writes with his right hand, and he plays punch ball with his left hand, so we say that he's a righty, and he puts on his tefillin on his left hand. But let's say he writes with both hands. He writes with both hands, and a stronger hand is his left hand. So he does all the heavy work with his left hand, but he still writes with both hands. So does he have a din like a guy who's ambidextrous that he should put on his foot on his left hand? Or do we say let's weigh all the things in writing? It's equal, but in strength this is stronger. Now put his foot on his right hand. So he says, according to this, Mediach Basmal, he should still put it on his left hand, even though most of the things he's doing with his left hand, including writing. But since he's also writing with his right hand. If he brings a shita, a bach. Now a bach is a third shita. The bach goes ahead and says, no, you don't go unilaterally after writing. We don't go after which hands are stronger. We put it all into the equation. So the bach says that if he writes with his right hand and everything else he does with his left hand, so then he's considered that he uses both hands. So if he uses both hands, he puts it on his left. But if he writes with his left hand and everything else he does with his right hand, then he should also put it on his left. So in other words, the Bach says they both go into the equation, and he's considered a shoylet b'shtei yadav, and therefore he would end up putting on his left hand.
And is there any case where, like, you have the fine ability on the left hand, but you might be stronger with the right? Because, like, I noticed, for example, you always shake hands with the right hand, so I have more grip on the right than the left. But fine motion or... So a Moshe goes into this at length, because really you could split into three categories. Writing, which hand is stronger, and then fine motor skills. Now, usually fine motor skills will go together with writing, but it doesn't always go together with writing. You can have a guy that writes with one hand, but his fine motor skills are in his other hand. So Moshe discussed that.
I tried to put on film in my right hand. It's very difficult to do it.
To put it on with the other hand.
With that hand.
Yeah, that happens to be another point that we'll get into later.
What's the third one that Reb Moshe says? He says writing, fine motor skills, and
heavy strength.
And just strength.
So the halacha ends off like this: that we have to go after the Psak Shulchan Aruch. So, which seems to come out like the second shita with the Ramah. The Artzas Achayim goes like the Bach, and the Goyin goes like the first shita. Here's where you throw a monkey wrench in. Usually when the Ramah will paskin one way, we'll go it that way. But when the Goyin comes along and starts going the other way, that confuses the Ashkenazim over here. So the Goyin went ahead and paskin like the first shita, that it has nothing to do with writing, and it only has to do with his stronger hand.
No mention of motor skill.
So he ends off like this. No, he doesn't mention that. Here, maybe this is what he means. He says, near lead, so the Mishabur Paskins, that filu day we shine, even according to the first shita, that you go after the weaker hand. That's if in the hand that he writes with, he can't do anything. He doesn't do anything with that hand. In other words, if you write with the right hand, let's say, and you do everything with your left hand, so there the first sheet in the Shulchan Aruch holds that he puts tefillin on his right hand. Because he doesn't go after writing, he goes after the strength. But zok to be halacha. If the hand that he writes with is not so bad in the end of the day, he could do things with his right hand also. He's not a total lefty. He's a 75% lefty. You know, he uses left hand. But if you want him to do his right hand, he could do it also. It's just not as good. It's easier for him to use his left hand. That's enough to be called that he shoyl b'shtei yadav, that he uses both hands, and he automatically reverts to his left side. That's what the bi'alacha comes out. And he brings a raya, interesting raya from lulav. Lulav we have the same shilas. But lulav we have the same shilah. Ashkenazim go that if you are a lefty, so you know you hold the lulav that has 3 minim in it. You hold that in your right hand, and the esrog you hold in your left hand. Okay? Now, if you're a lefty, according to the Ramah, you'll switch it around. You'll hold a lulav in your left hand, and you hold the right hand. If you're a Sephardi, it's different. If you're Ashkenazi, you'll hold the lulav in your left hand and the esrog in your right hand. So the Shara Tshuva says over there, if you shoyl it b'shtei yadav, use both hands, obviously then you go back to the regular way. You hold the lulav in your right hand, esrog in the left hand. It says if you mainly use your left hand, but you also use your right hand, it's just easier to use left hand. You're still not considered a lefty. You could still go and put it on b'smol kol adam, and you could still hold the esrog with your left hand and the lulav with the right hand. So he says, even though lulav has nothing to do with kshatim uksavtim, there's no writing, it has nothing to do with writing the lulav. Only by tefillin there's a special drasha of writing. Still, the Shara Tshuva says that so especially if you're writing with your right hand, so that definitely makes your right hand, a mandamer, makes it into something.
There's no writing in the mitzvah, but there's writing what the guy normally does. So there's no mitzvah of writing associated with lulav and esrog.
Right.
But you can still go by every day. What does he use?
Yeah, but by lulav it doesn't say that drasha ksavtim ukshatim. It's only by tefillin. By lulav, there's no drasha. It's still he's saying. So what comes out according to the bi'alacha is that even though we're going to paskin like the Ramah, that you go by the writing hand, and the other hand will be the left hand, that's only if things are very black and white. You don't do anything with your right hand except for right, and you don't do anything with your left hand, then perhaps you're left. I'm sorry. If your right hand is only for writing and everything else you do with your left hand, you're really stuck in the middle over here, because you have this big machlokes, and according to one sheet you put on your right hand, according to one sheet you put on your left hand, and according to the Bach you put also on your left hand. You have a real problem. But zok to be halacha, if as long as you also do something with your right hand besides writing, that would be enough to be machriya the shaila that you should put it on your left hand. Okay? The question would be vice versa. Let's say you write with your left hand and you do everything with your right hand. Okay? You write with your left hand, do everything with your right hand. Now, the fact that you also do something with your left hand, does that make it that you should put it on your right hand? That's what's very unclear over here. In other words, if it's easier to put it on your left hand, because that's if you're shoyl b'shtei yadav, you end up going to the left. If you use both hands, you go to the left. But if you could be machli, use one hand, then we know which is your right, and you put it on the other side. But if you use both somehow, so if he writes with his right hand, even though he does everything else with his left hand, it's like to be halacha. If he does something else also with his right hand, a little bit he could do with his right hand, that'd be enough to push him to the left. Let's say you switch it, and he's writing with his left hand, he's doing everything with his right hand. Okay, now you're back to this big machlokes, which hand do you put it on? But he also does some stuff with his left hand. That's not going to help him to put it on his right hand, right? Because a shoyl b'shtei yadav would go to the left, wouldn't go to the right. So you're still stuck with the machlokes over here. So this is a serious shaila. Rav Moshe has a long tshuva. Rav Moshe comes out similar to the Bach, but for other reasons. but similar to the Bach, that if you use both hands, one for writing and one for doing other things, so perhaps you would go to the left hand, especially if the writing hand is used for fine motor skills in general. Then he for sure pushes you over makes you into a shemoneh b'shtei yodav, and he would push you over to the left hand. So if we could figure that out, then it's easier that he should put it on his left hand. But if he's very black and white, he writes with his right hand and does everything with left hand, or he writes with his left hand and does everything with his right hand, then he has a serious shaila who he should paskin like. There are some people that say, well, put on both hands. Buy a 3-wheeled tefillin, you have one right, one left, and then the shalvosh, But we don't do that. We don't, because it's a little more like Baal Tosef, to put on both at the same time. We won't do. But there are people that will, after they put it on their left hand or their right hand, or however they're going to paskin, they will go ahead and after davening, turn over the tefillin, put it on the other side, to be yotzei those shittas that hold that they go after the writing hand, but they'll switch it over to go after the other hand.
So they put it upside down in one of the arms.
Yeah.
A practical. Go ahead.
So how do they decide which one should be upside down and which one should be normal?
They have to figure out who they paskin like. So I think today a lot of people will go similar to the Bach, and if they write with one hand and they use the other hand, they will consider themselves a shemoneh b'shtei yodav and put it on their left hand. But there will be those that will go like the Gra and always go after the stronger hand, and there will be those that go after the Ramah and always go after the writing hand. There are going to be those, but there are many that, because of the confusion, will go with the Bach, and once you use both hands, they'll consider themselves like they'll always put it on the Yatzbos, especially since Al Pi Kabbalah. Okay, here's where Kabbalah comes in again. Al Pi Kabbalah, they bring down that you should always put it on the left of the world. In other words, even if you're a lefty, you put it on your left hand.
Next to the heart.
Next to the heart, al-voch. There's reasons, Al Pi Kabbalah, we don't paskin like that at all. If a person's a straightaway lefty, he's not yotzei if he puts it on his left hand. We don't paskin like that. There is a shittas v'shayim like that also. There is a shittas v'shayim besides Kabbalah. There's a shittas v'shayim. We don't hold like that. All the poskim don't hold like that. So when the psak is given the Kabbalah, but there will be those that will go ahead and put it on the other hand to be yotzei the divei mekubalim that they put it on the left hand.
What about a guy who trains himself to do fine motor skills with his other hand?
In other words, he is stronger hand.
He writes left.
Yeah.
But it's not what you do in surgery. That the guys train themselves to use both hands.
Both hands.
Both hands.
So if he used both hands, he could put it on the left.
But he wasn't born that way.
So he wasn't born that way. Yeah. So training yourself does help. Training yourself does help, as long as it works. As long as it really works. The question is, if it doesn't really work.
Well, the question is, okay, so they'll give the practical attempts. Surgery residents are taught from the very beginning they have to be able to use both hands in surgery.
Equally as well?
Yeah.
Is that achievable?
If he's got a cast on his arm.
We're going to get to that one.
Yeah.
So these guys train themselves, at least in surgery, to use both hands, but they can't do anything else with both hands.
Really?
So they write with their native hand. In surgery, they use both hands. And the rest of the time, they'll do it where they're normally used to doing. So the question is, what are they?
You may use both hands, but your dominant hand is not going to change, right?
You may know, but when I'm telling you, in surgery, you look at a surgeon, and got several years' experience, you look at him do surgery, I defy you to tell me whether he's right-handed or left-handed.
But we always use both. Everyone.
Not equally well.
Balance them out so they.
Yeah, no, the problem is that because sometimes they have
The lashon of the Tosfos, the Piskei Tosfos in Menachos is, a lefty puts it on his right hand. Toiv, it is good that he should teach himself to write with his right hand, and he should be able to put it on his left hand. He brings down here in the Piskei Teshuvos that even though we find that many people did this, he says, brings down here from Shuashai, the Shevet HaLevi, that you see the Levush holds it doesn't help doesn't help to train yourself to do in one
Now,
hand.
wherever you're born with that.
Yeah, la halacha we paskin that it does help.
what
Mishabura
extent,
paskin
though?
it helps. It helps to train yourself, and you go. If you train yourself to use your right hand, you become a righty, and then you put it on your left. But the Levush tells it didn't help. So l'chatchila he brings down there Shevet Levi and others that you shouldn't try to do that,
Okay.
because then you get into this other shiloh. And also, perhaps you won't do a good job in training yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Over time, it'll fall back. When Moshe has a tshuva on that also.
Is
Still nicer, you know. You show someone the ksav how it was written, it still looks nicer the other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a questionable.
quick question. If you, God forbid, you are wearing a cast, you
Yeah.
can't
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to
Yeah.
that. We'll get to that. But, yeah.
and if someone has a stroke and
Yeah,
they're
can't
all
use
of a
it.
sudden the other, one
Right.
arm is useless.
Right.
Are we going to get to that too?
Yeah. So it's actually very complicated halacha. It's quite a complicated halacha. There is, as you mentioned before, that you could have a person who's so bad with his, let's say he writes with his right hand, but he can't do anything else with his right hand. So it may even be difficult for him to put on his tefillin on his left hand, because kashrut, if you don't know, sometimes if you can't use your other hand as well. So to tie it and you're not so your right hand is not so usable. You do everything with your left hand. That could be a shaila, if that's considered a yad. It's not even ksavtim. You can't tie it. You can't tie with that hand. So even though you can write with that hand, sometimes you can't tie with that hand. You could have an extreme case, and there would be a svara to flip it over and to make the other hand your left hand. Now, what happens? A person, let's say, gets a stroke or something. Gets a stroke, and now he was always a righty, and he put on his left hand, but now he can't use his right hand. Basically, he can't use his right hand. So the question is, does he get someone else to put tefillin on his left hand, or does his left hand become his right hand? So the Mishnah Berurah says, there's a little bit of a steer with the Mishnah Berurah, but the Mishnah Berurah says, where is it over here? Brings it down here. That if someone is a see it here. Oh, here. Brings out here like this. If he becomes a lefty because he taught himself, that also works. If min hashamayim they caused him, he got a sickness in his right hand, and a koyach came out, or the kaf, we'll see what this means, but the hand got cut off. So now he's obviously not using his right hand. So chlas is kol malachta b'smal, so now he becomes a lefty. So he becomes a lefty, so he puts the tefillin on his right hand. He puts it on that hand that doesn't work. If he becomes back healthy, so then he goes and switches it back. But that's the Mishnah Berurah says that if a person can't use his right hand anymore, so then he becomes a lefty. He becomes a lefty, naturally.
So that would encompass a cast?
Well, no, we're not up to the cast. We'll talk about the cast later. Let's talk about if he can't use his right hand. So then he says, but the problem is later he says, a little bit not like that. He says that it says over here that if he becomes a gidam is he has his arm cut off. If he becomes a gidam b'smal, he's a righty, and he becomes a gidam b'smal, do mokam anochas tefillin, and a gidam b'yamin. If he becomes a gidam in yamin, his right hand, afilu nikla kol hayad. Okay. So he says if his right, he puts tefillin on, he's a righty, he puts tefillin on his left hand. But if he becomes a gedim where you can't use his hand anymore, his hand got cut off, so now he has to have someone else put his tefillin on for him on his left hand. So now we have a stira. One place the Mishnah Berurah says if he can't use his hand anymore, he becomes a lefty. So he puts it on that hand. He doesn't need someone else to do it. He became a lefty. He can put it on. But here the Mishnah Berurah says if he's got his hand cut off, then he has to have someone else put his tefillin on his left hand. So it sounds like he doesn't revert to being a lefty. He remains a righty. So there's a stira in the Mishnah Berurah. How you paskin over here? It brings down several terutzim. You have Dogma Mavava, you have others. So the Dogma Mavava says it depends if there's a possibility for him to get back his use in his right hand or not. Then we'll consider him still a righty. Others give other terutzim.
If somebody lost if somebody lost their right hand, so that's now their weak limb. So
Right.
previously they would put it on the left. Would they now revert to?
That's the question.
Yeah.
That is the question. And here we have a shtickle stira. So it seems that the Lamaisa right place can seem to go that you revert to becoming a lefty, and you can put it on the other hand, unless later a guy loses his whole arm, then he would put it on the hand that he has left, and have to ask someone to put it on. Even though he uses that hand, and that's the only hand he has, but we don't consider him a lefty. We consider him only have one hand, and therefore he could put it on that hand.
Rabbi, is there a separate mitzvah to put on the tefillin and another one to wear the tefillin, or is it all one mitzvah? In other words, if the guy has to get someone to put it on,
It's just to wear it. It doesn't matter who puts it on. Yeah, just to wear the tefillin.
Who makes the bracha? The guy wearing
The guy wears it makes the bracha. The guy's wearing it makes the bracha. Okay, now we'll get to the cast question. So there's a halacha like this. Let's just back up and see the halacha. The halacha is you can't have something being chaytzitz. You can't have a chatzitza, something blocking in between. Well, you'd have a chaytzitz between tefillin l'bsarei, between the tefillin and his flesh. So in other words, he shouldn't put the tefillin on top of his jacket, on top of his shirt. There can't be anything in between the tefillin and his flesh. Loishna shal yad, loishna shal rosh, whether it's on the head or it's on the arm.
When it says nothing in between, the box and
Yeah, so it says like this. Right. So if
you're wearing a ring, it doesn't.
Well, we'll say in a minute. 1 second. So Ramah says that's the tefillin itself, but the ritzua is no problem. You could have a hefsek. Now, that's what the Ramah says. Bring the Mishnah Berurah of Achroinim Kasvu. No, ein lahakel. You shouldn't be makel under ritzua to have anything. Rak b'makam akrichas. You could be makel, let's say, in the arm where it's wrapping around, but the place where you're tying it, you should be machmer even in the ritzuos. Whatever part of the kshira should be machmer on. And the emes is that a person should be makbid on everything, that he should have the ritzua, if he could, that anywhere under the ritzua shouldn't be any chatzitza. A person should be makbid. But if there's a wound there and whatever, so then it's fine. Then it's fine. But the tefillin is a bigger issue. In other words, even though...
What does that mean, a wound? You mean you have a bandage?
A bandage or something,
bandage,
yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And the fact that the krichus was not a problem.
The Ramah says it's not a problem. The Mishnah Berurah says one should be machmer.
Even in the krichus?
Not on the krichas, he says, but on the parts where you're tying it on. And then others say even on the krichas one should be machmer.
What's the krichas?
Where you wrap around your arm and then wrap around your head.
Well, what
Some people put it over the watch.
This is most often
without going over the band.
Huh?
Is that better?
No.
Some people, but others
Is
put
that
it on
better
top.
to go over the band? You go over your hand, skip. You have enough room to skip the
Better
band.
to skip, yeah.
Better to skip
Yeah.
the bandage.
Now,
So like sewing it in.
that's the halacha. So the shaila is like this. The truth is big machlokes. Where does this come from that you can't have a chatzitza between the tefillin and your basar? The Rashba and Tshuva says there's no such thing. No such thing. The only thing is it says v'hoyu l'chala ois v'lo l'achayim lois. So that means that the tefillin has to be, the tefillin shayah has to be private. L'chala ois, not for other people. And therefore, that's why the minhag is to be covered at tefillin. We'll get more into that soon. We covered at tefillin shayah. Because it's supposed to be for you. So if you put it outside your clothing, that's a problem of you're putting it for achayim, you're not putting it for yourself. Under the clothing, you're putting it for yourself. On top of the clothing, you're putting it for others. So Rashba says perhaps that's a problem. But as far as chatzitza, there's no problem at all. But the Rosh and most Rishonim argue on the Rashba. At all, there is a problem of chatzitza on tefillin. But where does this come to geya? It comes to geya if someone has a wound that he cannot move the bandage. So what does he do? Does he put on tefillin? Now, this is a very common question. People have surgeries, their arm, they have bandages, and the head they have sometimes. What do they do about wearing tefillin? So, obviously, if there's a way to put on tefillin where there's no bandage, then they could put it on and make a bracha. So, like we said, it's mokum sheyesh b'shal rosh, and it's mokum maniyat to put on 2 pairs of tefillin. So, perhaps he could wear the tefillin a little bit higher, as long as it's in the mokum of the tefillin. So then that's what he should do. We shouldn't wear it on the bandage. Or on the rosh it might be a little harder because it's a little more mitzumtzum. But on the shalyad, even though we said the place to put the tefillin on is the lower part, but the goyin holds you can wear tefillin on the upper part of the hand. Therefore, if one has a bandage on the lower part that it cannot be removed, he should put the tefillin on the upper part of the hand. And this is very common with a cast. Many times the cast goes up just till halfway or something, so it would be possible to put tefillin on the upper part, and that's what he should do. And at least he's yoytzel l'fi the goyin and others, and rather than putting it on the cast, as we'll see soon.
What if he gets a few, not 7, but he can get a few? Is
7?
that better?
No, we're talking about the tefillin itself.
Yeah, but if he has from here to here only, then he can go around 4 times.
No. He doesn't go around. He could put on. Go around. Well, not makbid. If the guy has a serious problem, he could put on. He could go around on the cast. We're talking about the tefillin itself. I think the halacha is that tefillin itself can't have a chatzitza.
It's only on the top.
The ritzua is machmel lechatchila, but it's not machmel. It's not a problem. But the tefillin itself is a problem. Shalosh also. This is a place where you're tired of ritzuas. Lechatchila, wherever the ritzuas are going, there shouldn't be a chatzitza over here. But if the guy can't, so then at least the place where you're putting the tefillin should be open. But because it's according to these sheets, you can't have a chatzitza. Now let's say you can help that. Let's say there's no place to put on the tefillin, everything is covered. So there's a very interesting lashonis over here. On one hand, the guy can't be yoytzer the mitzvah properly because there's a chatzitza, but perhaps he should at least be yoytzer the Rashba. The Rashba holds the chatzitza is not a problem. And then there's another svara. There is a svara that perhaps it's not even a chatzitza. There's a whole shaila, a woman that has to be toivel has to go to the mikveh, and she has a cast, or let's say she's not even a cast. Let's say she has a bandage that cannot be removed. And this is very common, the shaila comes up. So obviously it's a very, very serious shaila, and one has to ask a Rav. But there's Chuvas Ksav Seifer and others that want to claim that perhaps it's bottled to the guf, since you want it there and you don't want to remove it, and removing it would be painful and probably harmful for the body. So perhaps it can become bottled to the body, and therefore it's not even considered a chatzitza.
Can't use the Rashba.
Now, and you have the Rashba shita, correct? You have the Rashba shita. Plus, you have perhaps it's not even considered a chatzitza. Perhaps now. Halacha l'maisa, most places don't hold like this, and hold that maybe perhaps it is a chatzitza, and therefore a shaila has to be asked when to be mekel, when not to be mekel, how to go about this. One has to ask when it comes to tefillin. When it comes to tefillin, he for sure should put on the tefillin. He for sure should put it on, and the question is only making a bracha. So get someone else that's making a bracha to be moitzi you, and then put it on. Or don't make a bracha, savik bracha slahakal. But to put the tefillin on, for sure, you should put it on top of the bandage rather than not putting it on at all, because you have all these shitas that perhaps it's not even considered chatzitza. Now I want to back up a moment for something else which is not very known before we get to the cast. there's a machlokes, even if you hold you need a chatzitza by tefillin, there are different levels of kpeda by chatzitza. In other words, the Gemara says by big day kahuna, those are learn kachim, by big day kahuna has to be on the basa, direct, very tight fit on the skin. The kohen's clothing that he wore. Be a kohen, so the clothing they wear are going to be very tight. And the Gemara debates whether even ear could be a chatzitza, or any sweat, anything could be considered a chatzitza, because there's two types of chatzitzas. There's something which we would consider a hefsek. There's a break. So we have all kinds of rules. Certain things are not a break. Anything that's noi, that's put on for nice, maybe is not considered a break, a chatzitza. There are different rules in chatzitza. Min b'minoi, for example, let's say my ritzua gets underneath the tefillin, which happens. I put the tefillin on, I tie once around, right? So many times the tefillin will go over, when I bend my hand, the tefillin will go over the ritzua. So there is a svara that min b'minoi ain't a chatzitz. It's the same min, it's the leather, and the leather, that doesn't consist of a chatzitza. And that's a very strong svara, and even though we're makbid to try to at least be careful that there's nothing goes underneath the tefillin, but there is a svara that if the ritzua goes underneath the tefillin, perhaps it's not the end of the world, because it's not considered a chatzitza. So there are certain things which do not constitute as can be considered a hefsek, as a break between my arm and the chatzitza. As a minbaminoi, you have davish benoi, something that's put on for nice. There's different things, but by the big day kahuna that doesn't apply, because it has to be al basari mamish, something which has to be directly on the basar. You may not have a chatzitza, but it's not on the basar.
Would he have to shave his arms?
No. You don't have to shave your head either when you put on film shavash.
No, but you said anything between.
But that's part of your goof. So we'll get to them in a minute here. But the svara is that perhaps tefillin, and many achar, the Birchei Yosef says that tefillin is worse than other things, and anything in the world, even if we wouldn't be considered a chatzitza for other halachas, a woman would be able to be tovel with it on her, but for tefillin, you don't have the tefillin on your hand. I don't care, lumdus is not a chatzitza. It's not on your hand, it's not on your arm. It doesn't work. As I zok the Birchei Yosef, it says that the Stipler has a shir that says in the Mishnah in Yuma that Yared v'Tovel, right, Olav and the Stapik, he went into the mikveh, the Kohen Gadol, he got up and then he dried himself off, it says in the Mishnah, and then he puts on his big day kuna. But the Mishnah is never so descriptive. He has to dry himself off. I mean, if he doesn't want to be wet, he'll dry himself off. Why does the Mishnah say dry himself off? So he says, being so Mishal Melech, because if he doesn't dry himself off, the water perhaps will be a chatzitza. Even though we know davar lachain a chaitzis, water is never a chatzitza, but the big day kuna has to be directly on his skin. So perhaps if your hands are wet, and you put the tefillin on, maybe perhaps the water will be a chatzitza according to the Birchei Yosef. So this is a discussion that the Achronim discuss. Halacha l'maisa, we're not so machmer. Avada l'chatchila, the Shloah says a person should wash the area he's putting the tefillin on before he puts on tefillin. They have to remember, like we discussed in the past, they didn't take showers every day in those days. And there was a good reason, perhaps, to wash it, that it shouldn't be any sweat or dirt, should not be chatzitza. This is all l'chatchila. But the halacha, we're not going to necessarily go with that. In Avada, something which does not consist of a chatzitza, perhaps you would even be able to make a bracha on, as we'll see soon. So, but there's halachas of chatzitzas of tefillin.
So if you have the cast, and then you've got the ritzua going around.
That could go on. That could go on.
Okay, so
that's okay. As long as it's tefillin, you get onto the bottom.
Doesn't even have to reach your hand then. It can just be wrapped around.
Yeah, it's better if you, at the end, you tie it on your hand, which is not in the cast, if you can get that. But on the tefillin, as long as the tefillin itself is on there. There's a whole discussion in the Paiskim. Someone who has a blura, someone who has a very big chup, a very nice hairdo. If the hair, extra hair, is that a chatzitza? Extra hair, not the normal amount of hair that should be on the person's head.
Just hanging like
so
this.
Perhaps it's too much. That should be a chatzitza. So
a hairpiece would be a problem.
A hairpiece is a serious issue. Rosh has a tshuva on it. Hairpiece is a serious issue. We'll get to that in a moment. So let's just go to the cast a moment. So there's a big machlokes. Do we consider a cast like a bandage? In other words, a bandage will be makel, and we could say put on the tefillin on top of the bandage. And don't make a bracha get someone to be moitzi you. What about a cast? To put the tefillin on top of the cast. You can't put it higher up. Our cast goes all the way up. So you want to put the tefillin on top of the cast. What's the issue? The lashon he brings here is that it's usher to put tefillin, because the l'chol la'is v'la'achem la'is uses the lashon that it's usher to put the tefillin on. So in other words, it sounds like if it's just a question of, okay, was I yotze tefillin? Wasn't I yotze tefillin? I might as well put it on, just in case I'll be yotze for those shitas. But it brings a lashon, I forget where it brings it from here, that there's usher to put the tefillin on. The usher, afilu yesh by makkah. It's usher to put the tefillin on. It's usher to put the tefillin on your shirt. You wear a shirt to put the tefillin on. It's usher. Where does this lashon usher come from? Maybe the lashon of usher. So they say because we don't put tefillin on a place where it's clearly visible that it's not on you. It's on the outside. You can't. So there are some that want to say, and Zilberstein, now he brings down halacha-lemaisa that no, really, if you're wearing a cast, there's no reason really to put on the tefillin on the cast, because it's not on your arm. Bishul, a bandage, okay, it's on your arm. There's just a chatzitza there, but a cast is a whole, solid thing. It's nice and thick, and you put it on the cast. You don't even see it that you're putting it on your arm. Some place could say the lashon, you don't feel it on your arm. You don't feel it on top of the thing. You don't feel it's on your arm. The Chelkas Yaakov clearly says not like that. He says that in Hilchas Chatzitza there's no difference, and perhaps a woman could go to the mikveh with the cast on if necessary, if it's there for a very long time, whatever the shitas are. So no, it's just a question of chatzitza, and therefore we should put it on the cast without a bracha. But there are others that say cast, no, you don't put tefillin on the cast. L'maisa, it's not so clear why it should be usher. But here's the catch: whenever you put the tefillin on the shalyad, on something that has on a bandage or something, one should put the jacket over the tefillin. Right. Because this Mishnah says, once, in other words, you put it on your arm, anyways you're supposed to cover the tefillin, we'll see. But when you put it on something else where now it looks like you're putting it on the outside, so if you put something else on top of it, that sort of brings it back in the inside. So whenever you're putting the tefillin on top of a bandage or something, on the tefillin shayad should be covered with even tefillin sharash, there were those that were makbid to put the talis over it. Mm-hmm. Even though on the other hand it says that for you everybody's going to see you Mecca that tefillin sharash causes fear, everybody's supposed to see it. But the others say that no, me'ikar din, it's supposed to be l'chol ha'is, and even the tefillin sharash should be covered. That's why there are those that sometimes have talis on, sometimes have it off, but there's an inyan to cover. So that's to take care of this problem of l'chol ha'is v'lachem ha'is. That's the film. Just to move this out a little bit. So we have these all the tefillins today actually that they sell. They put on the tefillin shalyad. They put on this black little box. You have a little box that goes in the tefillin. So it's actually, they used to be like this, and it's a Tosfos brings this down. There used to be, that was some Lama Beis, and the Chab brings down here. Noigim lahaver, the Ramah brings down. Noigim lahaver or alabay shal yad l'roichav azroi. They would put a piece of leather that would go over the tefillin, like a bridge, would go over the tefillin. Be a roichav bayis, so as thick as the bayis. Okay, there was such a thing that they would put on. Hatam, Meshur says, because we put it under the clothing. What happens is, since we want to feel l'chol, so you put the tefillin under the jacket. So what happens to the corners of the tefillin? They're going to get rubbed out. When the corners get rubbed out, you're going to be like halacha-theory. You're not going to have ribur. So therefore, you want to protect it. So they put a protective thing on it. Now, Tosfos gives 3 reasons why one's allowed to do it. Okay? In other words, it's not so simple that you should be allowed to do that.
Isn't there also some people that say that that's a way to cover it, that the hand one should be covered?
Some people say that's the way to cover it, actually. That's correct. Some say that's the way to cover it. Okay. There's a Russian Tosfos here. Tosfos gives 3 reasons why one's allowed to have that thing on. What should be the issue? The issue is that there's an issue. The issue is like this. The tefillin shel rosh has 4 bottom, right? Mm-hmm. We want to discuss this at length. There are really 4 bottom in tefillin shel rosh. And the outer ones, the halacha is they have to be open to the outside. Because if you put something or attach it to it, that could be like Bal Tosef, or that's covering. It's not near bachot. It's very mak, but there should be nothing covering it. So the question is on the shalyad also. Perhaps there's such a halacha that it has to be near lachotz. It has to be visible, the tefillin itself. And if you put something else there, it's like putting another bias there, another box, part of the tefillin. If it would become part of the tefillin, that would cause a problem to your tefillin. So I don't see that, but anyways, that's the question. Could you actually do that to put it on? So Tais gives 3 reasons why it's okay, why you're allowed to do that. He gives 3 reasons, and let's see that. Sheva Levi is marach on it, but he says. Tais says the reason why you're allowed to do it because it goes over the tefillin, but the 2 sides are open. Mm-hmm. The 2 sides are open. Yeah. So it sounds like to put a box on it would be problematic because the sides aren't open. Right. And for this reason, you'll see many of the new ones, they start making holes in the boxes on all 4 sides, on 2 sides, on the top, that it should be open to the outside. Now the place to say, the Maisa, it's not really a problem. Mice is not really a problem because that was in the old days. They actually sewed that piece of leather on. So since they sewed it on, it became attached. But ours is detached, so therefore you could put the box on and not worry about it. It's not part of the tefillin. But nonetheless, there are those that are makbid to make sure to remove that box every once in a while. Ad kadei kach, there are those that are makbid that when they put on the tefillin, they don't have the box on. And only after they finish putting on their tefillin do they put the box on. So it should be clear that this is just a covering that you're putting on, and it's not actually part of the thing.